Florida rejects more books for students. Now they don't want students to learn about what happened to George Floyd, which, by the way, is a murder that has significant racial context required to tell the narrative accurately. They don't want you to know about movements like Black Lives Matter, even though it is a political and social movement in order to affect change, policy change in local communities. So let's do this. Put him up, Governor Ron DeSantis, the man who is afraid of you thinking critically about anything. He wants to take books, he wants to take your right to vote, and he wants to be president. Governor Ron DeSantis has campaigned against what he has described as woke indoctrination. I want you to think about that. He literally campaigns against woke indoctrination and a leftist agenda in the classroom. I want you to keep this in mind, okay? The only person who will criticize you for being woke is a person who wants you to remain asleep. That's it. That's where the criticism comes from. Florida has now rejected dozens of social studies textbooks and worked with publishers to edit dozens more. This was his plan, day one. The state's education department announced on Tuesday in the latest effort under Governor Ron DeSantis to scrub textbooks of contested topics, especially surrounding contemporary issues of race and social justice. Now, I want to remind everyone, this is not a democratic process. This is not a majority rule process. And this is not about parental rights, okay? Let me explain. They will contextualize this as, well, the parents are complaining about these books, so we have to get rid of the books. What happens when only one parent complains, but 99.9% of the other parents do not? Well, guess what? It still goes on the list to be reviewed, to be banned. Who makes the ultimate decision to ban the books? Well, a bureaucracy does. A politically appointed bureaucracy. Now, what do we have in operation? You have an anti-democratic process in order to eliminate books that actually tell the truth because one person can file a complaint. Does that sound like parental choice? Governor, let's do this. Since you are so concerned about parents having choice, can parents tell their students or tell their children to wear whatever they want to wear in school? Can they violate the school dress code? Is that not a parental right? If they want their child to wear something that may be in technical violation of that school, should that not be the parent's obligation, parent's responsibility, the parent's right? What about this, Governor DeSantis? Because since you do not like mandated vaccines, why is it that all Florida public schools require them? You have not overturned that law. You have not sought court ruling as to the constitutionality of that law. Why is it that your public schools require it if you're against it? And let me also say this, sir. If this is all about parental rights, what about the parents who say that book should never be discarded? That book should be taught to our students. What if the majority of parents say it? It doesn't matter. See, the majority of parents, they do not get an opportunity to appeal and overrule their decision. All right, Florida has rejected dozens of textbooks. Worked with the publisher, they edited many of them. So the revisions included a textbook, no longer includes advice that parents could use the national anthem as an opportunity to talk about why some citizens are choosing to take a knee. How insane is that? That's modern context. That's a big reason we do academic work in the first place, to connect the lesson to the real life opportunity to apply it. All right, so parents could use the national anthem as an opportunity to talk about why some citizens are choosing to take a knee to protest police brutality and racism. Mention of the term socialism has now been removed entirely. And a middle school textbook no longer includes a passage about the Black Lives Matter movement, the murder of George Floyd and its impact on society. The removed passage described protest, noting that many African Americans sympathize with the Black Lives Matter movement. Factual statement, it is true. Here is the notable erasure of George Floyd, all right? Here it is. Before, here's how it read, okay? New calls for social justice during the 2000s. One effect of an increase in the use of mobile devices and social media was the spread of images of police violence, sometimes deadly against Black Americans. The deaths of Black Americans outraged many Americans and led to a growing awareness of systemic racism that permeated the broader society. All facts. In 2013, a new social and political movement called Black Lives Matter formed to protest violence against Black Americans. The movement called for an end to systemic racism and white supremacy. In 2020, bystanders captured video footage of a white Minneapolis police officer killing George Floyd, an unarmed Black American accused of using a counterfeit $20 bill. Floyd's brutal killing horrified many Americans, and protests broke out in cities across the country. That is what it actually read in the book. Once the government talked to the editors, here's how the passage reads now. Okay. Section removed. The bans were cemented by Manny Diaz Jr., let's put him up, who was a Republican senator for 4 years until taking office as the Commissioner of Education last year. He is a big nothing burger as it relates to actual education advocacy. In a statement Tuesday, Florida Commissioner of Education, Manny Diaz Jr., said that to uphold our exceptional standards, we must ensure our students and teachers have the highest quality materials available, materials that focus on historical facts and are free from inaccuracies or ideological rhetoric. Wow, let's put up the pictures. The bans have been protested by local Florida branch NAACP president, as well as Florida Educational School Board member, both pictured here. Yvette Lewis, president of the Hillsborough branch of the NAACP, said it whitewashes our history. It doesn't allow the children an opportunity to actually learn the truth about African American history. There are some teachers now that are afraid of certain words, like the word diversity. They're making it seem like African American history is a bad thing to learn and understand. Vaughn, the Hillsborough School Board member, said the information that was excised is important history. Those women are right. It is important history. And I want to say this to the commentary of the NAACP president. You are absolutely right. You are correct, madam. This does create an issue with true education. But it's not Black people they are afraid of students learning about. It's white people. They don't want students to learn the truth about white ancestors of Ron DeSantis. They don't want to understand, or students to understand, the genesis of the problem, because they know what students really are. You know what students are? I know what students are, so I'm a professor. They're the future problem solvers of our nation. That's who they are. They are the future problem solvers of our nation. And if you can socially engineer classrooms to never present the problem never gets solved. Bennie, thoughts?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is really just an escalation of something that has existed for a very long time in the United States, actually, because basically they know that if you're a big book publisher, you're not gonna wanna run a bunch of different copies of the same book. And so, for example, if you're the Texas system of education and you don't want people learning about white supremacy in the United States, well, then you tell the book publishers that you won't publish, you won't like bring things into schools if they don't include certain things. And then all of a sudden, we got the entire state of Texas pushing reactionary nonsense. And then the book publishers are like, well, we're not gonna run multiple copies of this. So this is the textbook that students all across the country will get. And so you get a few reactionary states that push like this ridiculous nonsense. And that's how you wind up with textbooks textbooks across the entire country that do things like, for example, talk about manifest destiny in a neutral tone. Quite literally, talking about manifest destiny in a neutral tone is like talking about Mein Kampf in a neutral tone. It was quite literally a propaganda campaign to justify a literal genocide across the entire Americas, right? That is what it is at its fundamental core. And we still have students to this day taught about it in neutral tone. And so this, I think we need to challenge the cowardice of Democrats in Democratic states to not mandate specific language within textbooks that actually require publishers to include very important, difficult facts, but very important facts. And what you said about ancestors is definitely important. But I think it goes even further than ancestors because oftentimes it's literally just parents, right? It's literally just the parents themselves. I mean, if you are old enough to have seen Star Wars in the movie theaters, then you quite literally were alive during the time in which sundown towns were at their peak in the United States of America. So it's quite literally, honestly, a lot of white parents who are outraged at the idea that their children would fully understand their behavior when they were younger. And to be honest, their behavior even to this very day. Because let's not pretend that violent racism isn't a major component of American culture to this very day.
Well said.